Hi, this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews, and I'm here to do a classic film review of the Mammootty film Mathilukal, or Walls, from 1990. If you're new to Pardesi Reviews, I do film reviews and trailer reactions of Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, and Hindi cinema. So I recently did a montage reaction to a birthday video, and someone had put in, made a video of all of these great lines and great performances of Mammootty. And I haven't seen as many classic Mammootty films as I have Mohanlal. So over and over in the comments to that one, this film, Walls, was recommended as one that I should see. I was also saying that I had a hard time finding his period film, Autobiographical, which came out in the same year. So Mammootty in 1990 won the National Film Award. I think it was a combination for these two roles together. I saw Kalapani recently, and so in my mind I was like, oh my gosh, when I looked up this film and saw it was called Walls because it was set in a prison, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm emotionally ready, because Kalapani with Mohanlal was also historical period about the independence movement and just how harsh the prison circumstances were, and the beatings and the torture, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can take another film like that. But I also saw this is only 2 hours in length. It won a prize at the Venice Film Festival, which is quite something. Probably, I'm wondering if it was made 2 hours to be more, it doesn't really have songs in the same way to pad out the length like other Indian films often do. I researched a little bit about it before I started to watch, and this is based on a short novel, or novelette, by Vaikom Muhammad Basheer. The original story, there was a wonderful sort of trivia story about how this novelette was written. So somebody, there was this editor of a newspaper who was putting together a special edition of short stories by all these famous authors, and he had promised a new Basheer story, but Basheer hadn't sent him the story. Many, unanswered phone calls and whatever. Finally, they get together and they have a dinner and they're drinking, and the editor steals the manuscript that Basheer had in his sack. When Basheer wakes up, there's no manuscript. Then screams bloody murder, and then is really upset because that was actually going to be a film script, and it might, if it was published in the paper, that wouldn't, that might be detrimental to the film. So fine, he says, then write me something new. Literally puts him up in a hotel for 4 days and has people constantly around him to make sure he doesn't bolt, and he actually writes the story. And the result is this story. So this is written in the middle 60s, 1965, I think. But the setting is 20 years earlier. And Basheer himself was a prisoner for treason acts, pre-independence. And he lived a really interesting life, traveling for years, doing all sorts of odd jobs all around India. And so he had a very natural writing style. I guess it was not kind of the formal language. It was a more natural spoken Malayalam language, which when he, and he became a beloved author. And this particular love story is one of his most beloved stories. So the film is by Adoor Gopalakrishnan, and I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but it was nothing like Kalapani. The short story evidently was written in first person, and it was really, about the author's own time in prison. But I don't know that his name is mentioned, in the short story. So Mammootty is playing the author. He's playing Basheer, and you see him. He gets special treatment. So it's not, again, it's not the horrors of prison. Not that prison is the greatest place, but he gets special treatment because he's such a beloved author, even while he's in prison. You know, guards giving him cigarettes, guards giving him a razor blade and matches, which normally would not be allowed. All of these, he gets special food by someone who works in the kitchens and whatever, because people have such respect for him. He gets special treatment all the way down. Sometimes you have an adaptation of literary work, and even if you haven't read it, you feel like you're in the world of that novel, that short story, or that, and that's what this film felt like. I felt like I was in a literary novel in the best way, not like, oh, it was all stuffy. And no, it just so different than almost any other film in a special way. This film, not until the last half hour does the love story happen. We see his everyday life. We see, I mean, it's sort of interesting. Instead of just being trapped in his cell, he was allowed to kind of make a little rose garden. And then the walls is, on the other side of the walls of the prison, was the female part of the prison. So he could hear things on the other side, hear voices, but there were no windows. There was nothing to be able to see the people on the other side. He and a woman prisoner connect and have very, I would almost say, racy kind of discussions. Fall in love just by talking to each other, never seeing each other. In fact, they're worried about, what would you think about my big, it's said in better dialogues than what I'm saying, but she's even concerned about how big her hips are or whatever. If he did see her, if he would still feel the same way. Just amazing. So we never, through the entire film, see the woman's face. Lalitha is the voice that we hear for Narayani. That's the female prison, who was in for murder. We're not really clear. It's sort of kind of implied, or maybe it's just my imagination, that maybe it was some sort of domestic situation and that she had years of imprisonment. Now, Basheer's imprisonment, Mammootty, was only 2.5 years. Other political prisoners are set free, and yet he is not. And so he is alone almost in the prison. All of his friends have been let out, but he was sort of singled out to stay in the prison. It has sort of this fantastical element. He's talking to his rose plants. He's talking to the chipmunk. And then suddenly he's talking to the woman prisoner. And so you sort of, at the end of the film, you're like, was she real? Or was she part of his imagination? It's almost like a fable, because here he was dreaming of freedom, dreaming of getting out, dreaming of being able to publish his works again. And then he's supposed to meet this woman, and the moment he gets freedom unexpectedly, he can't even tell her. And their signal is that she would throw this stick up into the air, and he just sees it. And it just, the end of the film, you just see this look on Mammootty's face as he just, like, he says to the person, what is freedom? Oh my gosh. It has this quiet, intellectual, contemplative feel through the whole thing. And this is not the bombastic Mammootty. This is the charming Mammootty. He charms everyone. He charms the guards. He charms the fellow prisoners. When he's transferred, there's one warden who takes all of his sort of contraband, smokes and matches and everything, and then he kind of, he charms the guy to give them back to him. So he just has this way about him with everyone. But there's many scenes where the camera is just on Mammootty, on his face, and there's no dialogues. You just can tell how he feels in that moment from Mammootty's face and Mammootty's gestures and the way he's acting. And it's been lauded as one of the top performances in Indian cinema, and I can see why. It's just such a quiet, beautiful film. I don't know what I was expecting going in, but it's just one of those exquisite films. So thank you so much, everyone that recommended to me. Here are my quibbles. I have not read the actual novelette that it's based on. I actually tried to seek it out to see if there was, like an English translation online, and I couldn't find one easily. I was wondering how short the original novelette was, if it was published in the newspaper or whatever. I think the director took liberties. There were other stories that this author had written about prison, because it's not just what happens to Mammootty. There's statements about fellow prisoners that he meets and what happens to them, and sort of the social commentary of different characters in the prison. And so I think this director made it a bigger, expanded it to a 2-hour film by adding in some of these other stories from other works by Basheer. My quibble is the romance between Mammootty and Narayani happens so fast. And I understand it's like that's the period that he's alone, but it just seems to happen like within a couple of days. And I don't know if it really was or it just felt telescoped that way. But to me, they exchanged gifts by throwing things over the wall. To only have it to be half an hour of this long film, a little bit longer for me, because to me, it was the most beautiful part of the film. And I would have loved to have a little bit more of it, but maybe that's part of the message, in that it was so brief and so intense, and that's the way we're experiencing it too as an audience. It's just like we're left wanting more, in the same way that Mammootty's character and Narayani are left wanting more. I don't know, I just wish that it had been, even if it had been 45 minutes instead of a half an hour of the film. I don't know. I just wanted a little bit more of that. Mammootty's such a great actor. He has such a range to him. I've seen him in all different kinds of films. And I really do appreciate you viewers pointing me to this particular gem of a film, because you knew I would like it, and you were right. I did like it. So, and I appreciate it very much, because the man has made, over 400 films. It's so helpful for me to have you guiding me to your favorites, the ones that I should be sure to not miss. Let me know your thoughts about this film in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at PardesiYT. Subscribe here to Pardesi Reviews. And if you hit the bell when you subscribe, you'll never miss another film review or trailer reaction.